You could be mistaken for thinking this was unimportant. Okay, so I always put my bag on the same shoulder. And I mean always. But it's just a bag though, right? Or how about a t-shirt or a necklace? Do these also sit off center even when there is no bag? Or even how about now, as you're watching this video? Any chance you're resting left elbow on table, head on palm, with more weight on your left leg? These are all examples of the spine resting with a bend in it. Nearly everyone does something like this, but that does not make it okay. The issue is the bend is always the same way. It's unconscious, it happens all the time, and even more when you're tired. Oh, this isn't me, you say. I just got clickbaited by the thumbnail and the intro and I just want to learn. Let's test that assumption. Right now, grab a piece of string and put it in your mouth. And look at where the vertical line hangs. For most people, this line is going to miss your belly button. It misses because your spine is not straight. Or maybe it does hit, but only because you're tilting your head back to compensate for the bend in the spine. The thing is, the position you're in doing that feels 100% normal and 100% straight to most people. Now, it's important to say there's absolutely nothing wrong with bending the spine. It can and should bend in many different directions. The issue is if we do it all the time, the same way, are unaware of that fact, and just leave it parked there all day. There are consequences to this position, and some of them aren't great, and not necessarily for the spine. This will impact the entire body's functioning in many different ways. In particular, this causes a lot of trouble for people's left scap muscles and rhomboids. They get left holding on to a lot of weight they should never have been supporting in the first place. In this video, I'll break all this down. How this happens, why this happens, its consequences, and how to fix it. So let's get into this. First, how this happens. Somewhat obviously, spines need to bend. It's really useful, so they come with a large capacity for built-in bending. Each vertebra can articulate in quite a few different directions and ways. However, they don't all move equally good. The lower vertebra in the lumbar spine are pretty thick, chunky, and block-shaped square, so they don't really have the ability to move side to side very much. But as we get to the top of the lumbar spine, where it starts to turn into the thoracic spine around the belly button level, things start to change. They start to get thinner and narrower, and the shape of the joints change. They get rounder, which allows for more side-to-side movement. This capacity for movement has consequences. The capacity for movement also means the capacity for instability. And boy, oh boy, do people utilize this unintentionally. At around this belly button level, I would say around 95% of people rock permanently either right or left all the time. So why does this happen in the first place? Fundamentally, it's just an accident of biological availability. It's just physically quite easy to do this. And people definitely do this worse than others. Some of the risk factors are being tall, so having a long spine, or being particularly flexible. But really what you have is just some combination of luck and genetics and even poor instructions or models. Like most people learn to stand from their parents. So if your parents suck at standing, you probably will too. And add to all that, we don't talk about or improve this kind of thing past like the age of 4. So if you didn't do it great then, you're almost definitely not going to do a good job now. So what are the consequences of doing this then? They're pretty wide-ranging, so I'll just pick a few interesting ones. If your spine isn't straight, your head and shoulders will not sit straight either. They might appear to be flat, like between the two shoulders forms a straight line, but upon closer inspection, this illusion will crumble. If your spine isn't straight, your head and shoulders have to do something to compensate. They could just come along for the ride as the spine moves, but this rarely happens. People nearly always compensate by bringing one shoulder up and tilting their head back across to balance things and make stuff look leveler. And so people will typically lift the shoulder of the side that they rock towards and tilt their head back the opposite way for balance. In a position like this, these muscles end up working posturally and will get stuck holding the weight of an arm or a head or a neck, something they were never supposed to be holding in the first place. Doing this, they'll get mad at you, and mad muscles hurt. It's the way they communicate that you're doing something wrong. The same thing happens here with the rhomboids, the muscles next to the shoulder blades. They can very easily get stuck holding on when you start to do things like this with your spine. Another negative consequence of this is what can happen to the functionality, balance, and strength of many of the torso muscles. When we collapse or rock in a direction like this, we remove the need for action for the muscles that would normally produce that action. We're getting there via gravity, via position, and we're not doing this via the muscles that normally pull or take us into that position. So these muscles get lazy, underdeveloped, and underwired into the nervous system, and when we need them, we won't be able to find them. So a really big, easy example of this is the lat. One of its roles in the body is to pull your torso to one side. If you fall in a direction, that muscle will become really underdeveloped and underwired and underfunctional, and when you need it in a movement, you won't be able to find it. So our body will improvise and use something else instead that is available that is probably not as suited to the task. Or we'll just fail the position and lose balance and stability entirely. This kind of asymmetry in torso muscle development and function almost always goes with a rock in the spine like this. Two last quick consequences. One, spines can hurt. There is no single factor that determines back pain, but having it sit non-centrally all day, every day unconsciously is probably doing you no favors. Two, you will take this bent spine into everything you do. Do you think you walk with a cool swag? Or is it in reality just rocking the same way on every step? This is going to negatively impact balance and sports performance, as this fundamental pattern is going to scale up into more complex movements like running, etc. Okay, so that's why it happens and some consequences. It sounds like a good thing to fix. How do we do that? Well, we need to learn to get our spines to rest centrally. The best way we can do that is by learning what that feels like and then doing it all the time. Simple but effective. It's fundamentally a wiring problem. It's not physically that difficult to correct or change this, it's just a non-ideal habit. Exercises and stretches are likely supplementary at best. We can break this down into a couple of really simple steps, the first of which is working out if we need to rock at all, and if we do, which way we normally rock towards. And we can look to the cues from the start of the video for this. So if you always put your bag on the same shoulder, like the right one here, we likely rock to the left away from the bag. Does your t-shirt neck hole or necklace fall left? Then you are likely rocking left. Do you rest your head in your left palm or sit on your left butt cheek? Odds are you're rocking left. Just try bending one way and the other and seeing which feels easier. Odds are the side that feels easier is the side that you like to rock towards. Lastly, take a photo of yourself, put it in paint, and just draw a nice vertical line from your nose down and see if it goes through your belly button or not. Just like the string, if it misses to the left, you'll probably rock to the left. You can also look for other things like how far away your arm hangs from your body. If the gap's bigger on the left, that means you're probably rocking to the left. Don't rely on a single one of these checks. Ideally, get all of these observations to line up. We want a single explanation with multiple pieces of data supporting it. Nice. Now you know which way you rock. Step 2, how do you get to straight from here? Well, it's actually pretty simple. We're going to start at the belly button level here. It helps to put a finger in it, and then all we're going to do is rock back the other way. Nothing below the belly button level needs to move, so the legs, hips, etc. do not change. And this movement isn't very big. It's super little at the belly button level, only a centimeter or two at most. By the time it reaches the head, this movement will have gotten a little bit bigger, but we really only need to move as much as we need to move to get our nose above our belly button with our head straight. The amount varies person to person and is often contingent on things like spine length, but it's really not that dramatic a lot of the time. Sometimes it is dramatic. The goal is to get the spine back to straight so that a straight line would go from our nose down to our belly button. It's really important to make sure we do the right kind of movement in the spine. It's usually not much of a sliding movement, although in rare cases it can be. So I don't want to see this horizontal shift through the vertebra. It's much more likely to be a rocking side-to-side movement. This movement is largely done by a range of abdominal and spinal muscles in this lower quadrant down here. There's no single one, this whole area just needs to contract down in a little more. You can think of dropping your rib cage ever so slightly down on the side and holding on when it gets there. And once we've done that adjustment and brought ourselves back to center, our head and shoulders might actually end up looking a little bit uneven. Remember from earlier how they were compensating for the bend in the spine? When you straighten the spine, they won't immediately stop their previous compensation habits. If they were just following the spine, then this wouldn't be a problem, they would just come back to straight. But it's much more likely that the shoulder on the side you rock towards was lifting. So once you get back to center, you'll need to drop and relax this shoulder back into a better position. As a bonus, you can rotate your elbow pit to forwards as you do this. And yeah, lastly, our head may need to centralize back on the torso as well. The final step is, once we've done these adjustments, is checking how correctly we did it. I recommend using the string from before, as that's a pretty reliable marker, or taking a picture, putting it in paint, and putting the vertical lines on it again. We should make a straight line from nose to belly button to ideally the center of our feet. It should feel fundamentally weird, wrong, and insane, and it should look Correct. Continuing to support this position is about continuing to hold on with that area down here, and adding our lats can help. So getting our elbow pits forward and using them to help stabilize the torso into a nice square shape. This adjustment also looks nearly exactly the same in sitting. The only difference being it really helps to make sure you have the same amount of weight on both butt cheeks before you start. Some amount of that rock is just not going to go away if all of your weight is completely on one butt cheek. So picking up and shuffling the heavy leg forward will often help you end up more on both to begin with. Once we've centered this, it should hopefully have carry-on effects to other parts of the body, like bringing more weight over onto the lighter foot. People typically, although not always, end up heavier on the foot of the side they rock towards because they're moving more of the weight of the torso above one of their feet. This can also often alleviate a lot of the tension that people are feeling around their head, neck, and shoulders, or rhomboids. Check this for yourself. Try resting in your more central position and your rock position for 20 minutes at a time and seeing which one feels better. Now remember, this is a movement skill. It's not inherently wrong to rock left or right. It's just wrong to do it unconsciously the same way all the time. So learn to rock the other way and learn to rest centrally. From now on, put the bag on the opposite shoulder, and when you're watching YouTube videos, rest your head in the opposite palm. There is a lot more that we could do in terms of posture and position that would be good to do that works in conjunction with this. So if you're interested, you can check out some of the other videos on my channel where I go into some of those things in a lot more detail. If you're really interested, you could also check out the link in my bio for my ebook where I get into the nitty-gritty details of a lot of these things. That's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something. Let me know what you would like me to make a video about next. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Peace out.